So, I first heard of Kevin Thompson in the mid-70s when Black Belt Magazine did an article on him, and I had subscriptions to the magazine at that time. And I remember being very impressed with him because he was 1 year younger than me. He was already a black belt, and he had his leg up in that straight-up kicking position. So that article made an impression on me. Fast forward to 1979, I'm living in Manhattan. I'm a student of Master Little John Davis at that time, and we're delving into the New York City karate tournament scene. It seems like there was a tournament every weekend back then. So I attended one of those tournaments, and at this particular tournament I met two very special people one day. I met a brown belt by the name of Kendu Allah, who later gained prominence under the name of Abdul Aziz. And I met Kevin Thompson that day. And I knew when I saw Kevin Thompson there, I recognized him. Wow, this is the guy from the magazine years ago. And I knew I was in for something special, the way he introduced himself to the judges before he performed kata. And he said, "Greetings, honorable senseis and masters of the martial arts." So I knew right then and there that you were in for something special. My name, Shaquille Abdul Muhammad, known as Little K.A. So, amazing. After he performed, I went up and introduced myself, and we shook hands. And right there in that instant, I regretted ever wanting to meet him. Fortunately, the tournament had an ambulance on site that was able to rush me to the hospital and treat me for a broken hand. If you ever shook hands with Kevin Thompson, you know what I'm talking about, right? Death grip. So it was either at that tournament or a tournament shortly thereafter that I actually competed against one of Kevin's students, and his name at that time was Jerome Pearson, later known as Wazir Jamal. In fact, I actually did an article on him in On Point magazine. If you go back to either the first or second issue, you'll see an article that I did on him when he owned his own karate school. But I was watching him fight. I thought he was okay. He was pretty good, fought with a lot of spirit, but he was primarily a puncher. And, I was primarily a kicker, so I figured, I had him. I figured I had his number, but he ended up beating me. And that was a clue that, Master Kevin Thompson was not just good himself, but was also producing good students and quality students. And that's not something that you often see in a lot of championship instructors, because doing and teaching are two separate skills. So, fast forward to almost a decade later, I actually had the opportunity to become a student of Kevin Thompson, and I joined the school. And at that time, we were training on South 10th Street, and it's not Newark, but it was one of the oranges. I don't remember if it was East Orange, South Orange, whatever. To me, coming from New York, it was Newark as far as I was concerned. And again, quality training. The lessons back then were an hour and a half to 2 hours. Very intense. And he created an atmosphere there where basically, I would call it a brotherhood of warriors. And one of the things that stood out about what he was teaching is he spent a lot of time talking about what I call the inner life of martial arts. And the inner life of martial arts has two components. The component that I'm interested in talking about for this video is the lessons that you learn in the dojo, applying those lessons to your outside life. And Kevin was very big on that. So he stressed that karate was spiritual, mental, as well as physical. Spirit, mind, and body. And this is the way that we approach the training. I also remember that we always trained to music. Work that body, work your body. It's one of the songs that we used to train to. Always trained to music, which was great. And after class, especially on the weekends, none of us were married back at that time. None of us were married. We would break out the chess boards after class, and we would just have chess wars. And we would go sometimes, from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to midnight, playing chess, and all of us grew up in the Ali era, and so that meant there was a lot of trash talking going on as we played the games. At that time, Kevin was an 8th grade math student. I mean, he was an 8th grade math teacher at a public school. And he came to class one day and he told us how the students don't understand the difference between a numerator and a denominator. And in order to break through to them, he had to teach them how to become good students. So he taught them about the importance of consistency, right? Showing up every day and asking questions. I remember a lady brought her son to class one day and she was saying that he could only come, I don't remember what it was, like twice a week or once a week or something like that. And Kevin told her that if he comes and does once a week consistently, or if it was twice a week, if he does twice a week consistently, yes, he will progress. He might not progress at the same pace as somebody who's coming 4 times a week, but consistency was something that he was a big believer in and a big advocate of. So from him I learned how to become a good student. And on the issue of asking questions, that students show up every day, train with effort, concentration. I remember one day after class, he asked us if anybody had any questions. And we were all like, no, Asatida, nobody had any questions, we're good. And he said, everybody get down and do push-ups. Everybody get down and do push-ups. You're all beginners here, your mind should be filled with questions. So when you get up, you better make yourself have a question. And, it's very true, because it's a good point, because we're all beginners. Yeah, we should have questions. And if you're mentally engaged in what you're doing, yeah, then, you should have questions. So, that was something that, stuck out in my mind. So a lot of you out there watching this might know Kevin Thompson from the tournament scene. In Point Magazine, we recognized him as the greatest overall competitor that the world has ever known. Forms, fighting, and weapons. He excelled in all 3 and competed in all 3 at every tournament. So some people might challenge who is the greatest lightweight fighter of all times, who is the greatest weapons man at all time, but very few people will argue against the truth that Asatida Kevin Thompson is the greatest overall competitor of all time, the GOAT, the greatest of all time. So fast forward again, many years later, I get a call from my good friend Abdulaziz, and he told me that Kevin had been afflicted with ALS, and how they were giving him, I think it was 2 or 4 years to live or something like that. It's a death sentence as far as mainstream medicine is concerned. And as I listened to Abdulaziz talk, I was very upset by it. I was disturbed, because it's dangerous for a doctor to tell somebody that we don't have a cure, that there's no cure for this illness, and that 90% of the patients die within 2 to 3 years of diagnosis. And the reason that's dangerous is because a lot of people will accept what the doctor is saying, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. It actually becomes a death sentence. And so, I don't like that, because I don't believe there's any such thing as an incurable disease, although there are a lot of chronic conditions that mainstream medicine doesn't have the answer for. And that's what they should limit themselves just to, that remark, saying, hey, mainstream medicine doesn't have the answer for it. And once they tell you that, then that should free you to go ahead and look at other remedies. But, one of my points is this: how can mainstream medicine say that a person can come back from the dead, right? This is what they say, right? There was a case this summer of 2013, a fireman. He didn't die on the job. It was unrelated. I think it was a car accident or something like that. He was pronounced dead. 45 minutes, he was on the table dead for 45 minutes and came back to life. no brain damage or anything like that. So you're telling me you want me to believe that a person can come back from the dead but can't come back from ALS? No, I can't accept that. I don't accept that. So I was telling these things to Abdulaziz, and Abdulaziz told me to reach out and call Kevin. And I'm like, well, do you think it's all right? I don't impose myself on him, whatever. And Abdulaziz says, listen, if I'm telling you to call him, then it's all right. So he gave me the number, and I reached out to Kevin. And, we started talking. And before I called him, I spoke to my brother, who's a medical doctor in the Los Angeles area, a prominent neuropsychiatrist there. And he just started a website recently, too, called DrZHealingArts.com. And so he's classically trained, modern medical doctor, but he's also opened his mind to healing. And so he's not as closed-minded, not as dogmatic as a lot of mainstream medical doctors are. And I asked him, is anyone getting results with that? I mean, that's what you should do if you have illness, right? A chronic illness in particular, right? Who's getting results? Find the people that are getting results. See if you can model it, do what they're doing. So he said it's definitely not a death sentence. Plenty of people are getting good results with it using holistic methods. So I called Kevin. I tell him that. I told my brother's working on a protocol that he's going to send to him, and I wanted to hand deliver that protocol. So at that time, I had the opportunity also. Kevin put his wife on the phone. She's a nurse, so she's also traditionally trained, just like my brother is. And she was telling me about, basically she was skeptical that they've tried various things and that nothing was working, and that there's all this research, the scientists all over the world are doing this research, and they haven't come up with anything at all. Now, after the phone call, I did my own research, and it took me about 15 minutes to find two very interesting cases of long-term survivors. One person who survived for 19 years, another who survived for 20 years, probably at this point now it's probably 21 years. And both of them applied a definite process. And this is the thing to understand about health and healing, especially when you're talking about a chronic illness. If something that is a chronic disease, it's going to take a lot longer to restore your health. You're not going to find health in a pill. You're not going to find it in a formula. You're not going to find it with radiation, chemotherapy, or surgery. It's a process. Health is a process that you have to go through. But I thought about all the research that his wife was talking about, that all these scientists were doing, and I mean, I just realized it's fake research. And it's fake research because these scientists are getting multi-six-figure incomes from doing this research, and as soon as they find a so-called cure, that's it. They're out of a job. So the research is fake research. And what these doctors need to do is stop studying disease and start studying health. That would make a big difference. So a few weeks after that, we made an appointment to meet Kevin at his school. And I got there first. And then Kevin pulled up. I was at the top of the stairs. And it was taking him forever to come up the steps because he's not 100% anymore. So it was taking him forever to come up the steps. So I yelled down the steps at him. I said, "Yo, hurry up. I don't have all day to wait." Trust me, I didn't say that. Too much respect for that reverse punch. I remember years ago talking to Pedro from Boston Taekwondo about what it was like being in the ring and going against Kevin Thompson. And Pedro said, "Don't let him hit you." He said, "Whatever you do, don't let him hit you." So I went downstairs and I greeted him. And, he insisted on walking up the stairs by himself, and I kind of stood behind him and was just there to balance him in case he lost his balance or whatever. And so we went inside, and, we had a conversation, and I hit him with the protocol that my brother had prepared. And I remember the night before, I called my brother because I thought Kevin's wife was going to be there and meet us also, but she wasn't there. But I told him, "Listen, I have this meeting tomorrow with my friend." And my brother knew nothing about Kevin Thompson at that point. I hadn't even told him that he was a martial artist or anything. He didn't even know his name. He just knew that he was a friend of mine. I said, "I've got this meeting tomorrow, and I need to to know what to say to him. I need the most powerful words that I've ever spoken. And those of you that have read Stoneheart the Bronx or On Point Magazine, when we did that, you know that I've written some powerful words in the past. And I said, I've got to go way beyond that. I need the most powerful word that I've ever spoken, because somebody's life is hanging in the balance here. And his wife, who's traditionally trained like you, she's skeptical. So what should I say? He said, well, to his wife, appeal to her common sense. The things that they're doing and not trying, maybe they want to try something else. And as for your friend, introduce him to the eighth wonder of the world. So when he said that, that kind of, made me go like, wow. Because saying introduce him to the eighth wonder of the world, it's crazy, because that is actually a nickname, that Kevin Thompson had for many years. And my brother, not knowing that, but saying that, it's just like a crazy type of connection there. And what he meant by introducing him to the eighth wonder of the world, he meant introduce him to the energy that resides within him. We all have this internal energy within us, and it can amplify whatever it is that we're trying to do in life. So, the protocol that I presented that day was very simple. It's number one, cleanse, detoxify, get the chemicals and the poisons out of your body. You don't have to be a scientist to realize that neurotoxins cause neurological disorders, and that's what ALS is. It's a neurological disorder. So it seems like a sound game plan to me to get the neurotoxins out of your bloodstream. What are we talking about? Neurotoxins. We're talking about the mercury. We're talking about the fluoride. We're talking about the aluminum. We're talking about the chlorine in the water, a million other things. And the mercury, it's in the fillings that you get at your dentist. Mercury is in the vaccines. It's one of the most poisonous substances known to man. You can see videos of it under electron microscope actually destroying nerve cells. Again, the water, chlorine, fluoride, arsenic, poisons, aluminum, volumes and volumes of studies on these things and how bad they are for us. But yet it's in the drinking water. So if you are drinking tap water, unfiltered tap water on a regular basis, you're just out of your mind. You're crazy. And you obviously don't value your health. So you need to pick up a book and start doing some real research. Again, if you live in an industrial area, which Newark, New Jersey is an industrial area, and there's a lot of plants around there, factories, and they're blowing toxins into the air constantly. If you're doing a lot of flying now, since 2009, or I believe it was 2009, when they started, Obama installed all of these rapid cancer machines at airports all across the country. And you think that a machine that is capable of taking that type of image of the human body, you think that amount of radiation is safe for you? Well, keep flying and keep taking the cancer shots. I'm going to take the pat. I'll take the pat down. So there's a lot of ways that we contaminate ourselves. The food that we eat. If you're eating food that's not organic, you're getting a lot of foreign chemicals in. So it just makes sense that should be the starting point. Let's get the chemicals and the poisons out of our body. Then we can start taking other nutrients, changes in the lifestyle to bolster that. But cleanse and detox was step one. Rebuild was step two. And number three, cultivating the internal energy. For those of us from a martial arts background, we're familiar with Qi Kong, and you're familiar with Tai Chi. If you come from a hard style kicking and punching background, making the adjustment to Tai Chi is probably going to be very difficult. It's probably not going to match your temperament, and also it's hard to find a good Tai Chi instructor. Most Tai Chi instructors are teaching it as a form of mild physical exercise today. They don't even talk about the importance of the breathing component that goes with it. And that's similar to the way that they teach yoga today. Teaching yoga as a physical exercise, which is absurd. Yoga has so much more to offer than that. But, certainly getting into meditation and Qi Kong are two ways of cultivating the internal energy. This is something I've been studying since the 80s. And what it does, it amplifies your body's efforts to move toward health. And it amplifies your efforts to move in a more positive direction with your life. Some of the, let's say, wants to give up whatever bad habit they have. They might want to give up cigarettes. Being in a practice like that, over time, you'll lose your desire for these poisons, such as cigarettes, such as alcohol. So that's the concept I introduced to him, and I told him about that. My brother agreed to talk to him for free and give him a free consultation so he could pick his brains. He could have his wife on the phone and pick his brains also. And I never heard back from him, which is unfortunate. And I told him that at that function that they were planning in Manhattan, that I didn't want that function in Manhattan to be like that movie about the life of Lou Gehrig, when Lou Gehrig goes out into the field for the final time and says, I feel like the luckiest man on earth. Basically, that was his goodbye speech, and I did not want that event in Manhattan to turn out to be like that. But in a sense, that is what it turned out to be. During that event, Kevin talked about how he tried different treatments that didn't work. He said he tried holistic, and that didn't work. But when I visited him at the school that day, when he told me the same thing, he's tried holistic and it wasn't working, I asked him, well, what do you mean by holistic? And he said that he had tried resveratrol, CoQ10, and some other supplements. Okay, so those are great supplements, but that's not holistic. Okay, holistic means treating the body, the mind, and the spirit. Just as he taught karate in a holistic way, spirit, mind, body. That's what a holistic approach is. You're not going to find health in an antioxidant, in a couple of strong antioxidants. Okay, it's a process that you have to go through. That is not the holistic method, trying resveratrol and CoQ10. So he said that he had tried another treatment too, where they blast you with like ultraviolet light or some type of light, which kills parasites. And that's great if you want to take an approach of like, hey, let's leave no stone unturned. I don't mind that. But who's getting results doing that? Who's getting results getting this treatment where you're blasting yourself with the light? I mean, what I'm talking about, people have gotten results with it. So why not try something that's doing results? And to the scientists doing all the research, these two guys that I found in the first 15 minutes, and I stopped researching because those two cases were so interesting to me, and I was reading up on their backgrounds. So where are the scientists knocking on these guys' doors, finding out what they did, and then see if they can duplicate that in other patients? That's the scientific method. That's research. So what kind of research are they doing? Closed door, fake research, so they can keep the money coming month after month after month. So, one of the things that I showed Kevin when I went to the school is I showed him the impression that the impression that he had on my life. He was very impressed that I remembered so many of the lessons that he had taught me in the 80s. He taught us these things called the laws of success. Savings, habit of savings, little by little, and so many things like that about basically managing your life and achieving success in life. And I was throwing all these things back at him, and he was just overjoyed that he had that type of impression on me. And even if you look at the name of the art, American Karate Do, years ago I was asking Kevin about the katas, which I love. My all-time favorite was Dafir, and I put a challenge out to him. I said, hey, let's get on this program, get you back on your feet, and a year from now we meet back here at the dojo and you teach me Dafir, okay, my favorite kata, which I never got to learn. I consider myself to be a student of health. I'm not a medical doctor by any means, and that's why I'm free to criticize their approach, because I don't have big pharma in my pockets, telling me, limiting what we can do for our health. And I think that's important. It's time for us to become a student of health, because there's so many assaults on our health coming from all different directions. 500,000 Americans will die this year from cancer. 500,000 will die from cancer this year. 100% of them will be relying on conventional medicine. So, cancer, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, those are the top killers in the country today. Chronic illnesses, all of them can be eliminated. There's no reason that anyone has to die from any of those. But if you're relying on conventional medicine, prescription drugs, surgery, radiation, all I can say is good luck. You have to understand who's responsible for your health. Is your doctor responsible for your health, or are you responsible for your health? And how can you claim to be acknowledged that you're responsible for your health, but you have no knowledge of health? These doctors are out here just treating symptomatically, and I wouldn't trust most of them as far as I can throw them. So, back then when I was asking him about Darfir, and I found out during that conversation that he actually created Darfir and had created all of the forms in the system, which was just amazing and a testament to his creativity. But he had added so much to the system, the KA system, standard style straight fighting position, that when Al-Muwassa Kareem Abdullah returned from his hiatus in boxing, remember he had that boxer that used to that middleweight that used to fight on television. When he returned from that hiatus and came back to Kevin's school, he didn't recognize it as the KA system anymore, and said, you know, you can't call this the KA system anymore. And that's what led to the birth of American Karate Do. So the system, karate is a way of life in America, and the system that I teach today, which is called American Bushido, the way of the warrior as a way of life in America, the way of the warrior in America is, I chose that name as a way of paying tribute to one of my instructors, Asatida, Kevin Thompson, 10th degree black belt. ALS doesn't have to be a death sentence.